not just because we're turning up the heat, but because we are looking at turning the fire under the pot that is boiling, which is Kenya and its people, and saying that there's certain things which cannot be allowed to slide or left or brushed under the carpet. So we'll continue that conversation this morning. And at the point where they actually do then get into the room, nominated Senator Veronica Maina will join us with the Senator for Murang'a County, which is Joe Nyutu. We're going to be looking into national leadership, just to check. You know how you're playing a sport and every now and then there's a timeout, so there's something whereby you need to have a huddle and have a conversation about what's really going on, testing the moral compass of Kenya's leadership and to find out if we're actually on the right track. So both senators will be with us to have that conversation this morning. As we get into really saying, okay, this is actually what Kenyans want. It's not just about you sitting in your corner and you having the wherewithal to decide what it is that people will discuss or the direction in which they'll go, but it's actually taking into consideration what the people of the country want and how they know and feel that they should be governed. But we're going beyond that, over and above people, and we're saying that how you choose to take into consideration what people have to say and how they operate then is paramount and extremely important. So that forms the basis for our conversation this morning. And we say a very good morning to Senator Veronica Maina. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning. Nice to see you once again in this new year.
Indeed, it is.
I hope you have goodies for the new year. And good morning to the listeners.
Well, you know. Well, we're grateful that you're here with us this morning. Senator Nyutu joins us in a short while, but then for us to have this conversation about leadership, necessary for us to always do a check and say, okay, where are people now? Feeling a little bit better or feeling a little bit more disillusioned? And either way, all of them must be taken into consideration. Before we get into that, however, Dennis takes us to Cameroon this week.
Yes, okay. Cameroon.
What's happening in Cameroon?
They're rich in oil. Cocoa. They talk about coffee, timber, and cotton. Also, the main sport in the country is football. So you talk about Samuel Eto'o, Roger Milla, the ones who continue to carry the country. And the football team, Indomitable Lions, has won the Africa Cup of Nations several times. And the proverb that you get from this country is the lizard that jumped from the high tree said it would praise itself if no one else did.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yes. How would you interpret it?
The lizard that jumps from the height, sometimes you can make so much effort and there is a moment you feel as though you are invisible. So the lizard was smart. It said, for all the efforts I'm making, if no one gets to see, I'm going to alert them. And I guess in life, this is what it has turned out to be. You see like how the TikTok working, the social media platform. Sometimes you'll have somebody just doing something which nobody knows or praises or is never appreciated. I think we always have a chance, like the lizard, to say, if no one else does it, I will do it for myself. So there's always hope.
Yeah.
You can rescue yourself as a human being also, if the lizard can do that. Yes. Yeah.
Senator Nyutu, karibu sana. And the probably looking at, we are in Cameroon, right? A country that is rich in oil, cocoa, coffee, timber, cotton. You talk about Roger Milla, Eto'o, greatest footballers of the time. And the proverb is, the lizard that jumped from the high tree said it would praise itself if no one else did. How would you interpret it?
Thank you. I have not had time to at least breathe, but then we have to take up the challenge. That, of course, even when jumping from high tree is risky, but sometimes you have to take a risk in order for you to be able to at least do something better. And that reminds me of a story in the Bible where I think there were some blind men, they said, if we lie here, we'll die. Of hunger, and if we go into the city, we could still die. We could still be killed. So they decided, because we are going to die anyway, we better get into the city. And I think it's something like that. Finally, they found that they were able to get into the city without getting killed. And so it was better for them not to just stay where they were, to make, a move. So I think in the same sense, that it's better to make a move, though risky, than not to make a move at all.
Absolutely.
Well said.
And also run into the camp where you die with hope,
Yes.
Don't stay where there is no hope.
Sure.
Yeah. Run for it. Go for it.
That's great to hear this morning. Definitely. Every now and then it's good to do a check in terms of what's going on. With the different happenings then will point in one direction or another. We are at a place where the politics are starting to really heat up, and in terms of who's doing what, and in terms of what leadership looks like getting into the next period that Kenya will go into. Whether it's scattered or peppered by by-elections, there's another one happening in Isiolo in a few days. There are other things. IEBC talks about what it is that they're able and what they're unable to do in the meantime. But the political space then is rising in terms of temperature, in terms of who's going to do what and who may or may not move to another side. In terms of leadership and what's being offered to the people, I want to ask the question from the people's perspective. That is the people's perspective taken into consideration when leaders are making the decisions that they make. We'll start with you, Senator Maina.
Ideally, the people's views, decisions, and aspirations must be carried on board. There is no leadership without the people. Because the Constitution in Article 2 is very clear. It's about the people, a government for the people, by the people, and to serve the people. So if, for instance, you take away the people aspect, then you have taken away the critical component that gives the good norm in the Constitution. It's the foundation. The foundation of democracy is about the people. And that's why you see, even in leadership, the way the vote is counted. You look at what is the wish of the majority, and the majority have their way, and the minority have their say. So even the minority, in spite of being the minority, they should have a say. But the majority will have their way. But the view of the minority must also be heard. So if you want to show me good leadership, show me a leadership that is keen to know what the people are looking for, a leadership that is serving the interests of the people, and a leadership that takes into account, for instance, that when public participation is done, the purpose of public participation is to take on board the views of the people. For instance, as a political space starts to heat up, if you ask yourself, where is the wish of the people in relation to so much disharmony that we are seeing in the political space, I can assure you this morning that the majority of the people will not be interested in violence, will not be interested in insults, will not be interested in a space that looks like commotion. They are more interested, unless if I'm listening to the wrong group of people, the majority do not want the commotion that disrupts their lives. So the wish of the people, even as we move towards 2027, must be looked into. And it's okay, even when it is the government being told this is what the people are looking for, or even the opposition or any other competitor in waiting. It is important that we adhere to what we believe is the best interest of the people and what is the best wish of the people.
Okay, it's
so
interesting.
For me, from leadership, if I was to speak from a neutral position in terms of who is a good leader and what is a good governance system, is the one that would fully listen to the people and implement that which the people desire of them to implement.
And it's interesting because leaders are humans, but
yes,
what we've heard in the last couple of days, interestingly enough, coming to you, Senator Nyutu, is that people are very insistent about the positions they will have. If there is going to be a coming together of government at whatever level, whether they are political parties who come and share things, we've heard about the insistence that we must have the deputy president's seat or we're not in this thing. We must have, I heard yesterday there was, if we must retain the CS energy, we must retain the CS treasury or we are not in this thing. And for me who is speaking, there must be something for me as well. Others say absolutely not. If you're coming to join us on the table, forget about the deputy president. That has already been taken. Do you understand? So maybe people are finding it difficult to reconcile with that it is the people who are being thought of first, where all we hear every day is, no, it is this position, it's either hell or the highway, or it's either this position and this position is for me. So where do the people come in all of this, Senator Nyutu?
Thank you, Du, and I've listened to you very well, and I think the side that is actually insisting on positions for particular people is the side of government and those that support government. If you look at what we have been calling united opposition, and now we have the ODM that is led by Sifuna and Babu, nobody is talking about the positions that they are going to hold. Because I come from that side, our position is that we want to do away with bad governance. And of course, if you have to do away with bad governance, then you have to remove the person who sits at the helm of that government, who is President Ruto. So for us, we are not talking about our positions. For us, we are saying we need to come together for the good of Kenyans, because Kenyans are suffering under the weight of heavy taxation, violation of human rights, and very many other things that are being mismanaged by this government. And so I think Senator Veronica, because she supports that side, could address that question better of where the people, come in this particular matrix, because they're the ones talking about that. But talking about, of course, Mount Kenya leaders, those that support government saying, for example, that they'll have to retain the DP's position, I would tell you that personally, I think that is an insult to the people of Mount Kenya, because Mount Kenya had a deputy president, and the same people drew out the deputy president that had been elected by the people. And the same people have been talking about the second deputy president, and they're referring to him as a tribalist. Because he talks about Mount Kenya. Now you are left wondering, why are they talking about Kindiki? And it's just people from Mount Kenya that are saying that. Are they not tribalistic? But allow me to say that politics sometimes is sometimes very toxic and sometimes annoying, because you see somebody who's yesterday, stood on that moral pedestal saying how nationalistic they are, but today they are becoming, of course, tribalistic, or they are talking for the region. But allow me to also say that I've listened to my colleague and friend and a fellow Morangan, if you can use that term, say that saying that she would not support any violence, any insults in leadership, and I agree with her in totality. The challenge is that this is the same. The two vices are being perpetrated by the government that she supports. I mean, the violence that we have witnessed, especially against Rigathi Gachagua in particular, and those that, of course, support him, has been perpetrated by government, and this is something that is widely, reported. You look at insults, and the person who leads in insulting people is President Ruto himself. And nobody has not heard him say that people are brainless. So probably I would like to ask Senator Veronica, when she meets her boss, to ask him to stop insulting people and to remind him that God was not limited in any way, so that the only brains that he had left were those that he gave to Ruto, and the rest of us, of course, found that the store of brains that God operates was depleted, because God is limited, and only President Ruto was given the few brains that remained, and all of us then were not lucky to find any brains remaining. Of course, we'll get your time. And all of us did not have the luck the opportunity to get some brains remaining. So I think when you talk about insults and violence, I think that is something that should be told to President Ruto as his government, because they are perpetrating violence against people. He is insulting people every day. So I think it's important that when we look at leadership and we look at it generally speaking, but then, the person who should exhibit the best leadership is that the top politician who happens to be the president.
Senator Maina, you want to respond to that, but then
Yes, I want to respond to those issues.
Yes, I will have you respond to that, but as well, I'll just pose a question to both of you, right? In all this back and forth that we're just having here in the studio, right? We realize nobody has actually mentioned about the healthcare situation in the country, the education, because if you look at the paper today, we have parents who are saying we do not understand how our kids will go back to school because they're being asked for extra fees. We have an individual who died in a hospital in Mombasa, and that is because there was no equipment and facilities to enable that man survive that day. One asks the question then, in this entire discourse, in cleaning the political space, as you call Senator Nyutu and Senator Maina, when does issues affecting Mwananchi take center stage, even as the political class tries to organize themselves for the next election?
Let me respond by first saying, I think you heard my tone in my first response. My first response to the question that Ndu has given me was not in a matter of slighting anybody. First, you asked me about ideals. I responded to the ideals. When my colleague took the stand, Senator Nyutu, my brother from Muranga, his first reaction was, I should respond in a manner that is suitable. That already is a display of intolerance, because my response doesn't have to fit into anybody's straitjacket. It can just be me. And I'm comfortable being me, being Veronica, having my own view because I'm a citizen, and I can actually hold a view, whether I'm a leader or not a leader. If I'm a mama boga or a teacher or a nurse or an advocate, I can actually hold a view, and a view that can be listened to by any Kenyans. So first I would say, governance, part of how we rate governance in an individual is you look at the tone, the language, the behavior. How do they respond? How are they tackling issues? Am I quick to jump at somebody? Senator Nyutu has tried to say how the president is at the top of insulting other people. And then he continues to use a statement to say it's as though that God was only left to give a brain to him. That by itself, does he realize already that is an insult, that you're accusing one of being insultive, but the statement you're using are demeaning, they are degrading. You have not helped the situation because you are insulting further. But I do quite understand him, because his style of leadership has been issuing radical statements that then gets tweets and then gets circulation on the social media. And unfortunately, our leadership styles are caught up in a very, what would I call it? A narrow style of analyzing issues, such that when you see your colleague insulting, you respond with insult. Yet the Bible says, a soft answer turns away wrath. It turns away wrath. When are we ever going to learn from these biblical principles? And the challenge being, the challenge that he has raised, that the vices are being perpetrated from the government side. The best he can do, if he has evidence on how those challenges are being perpetrated from the government side, is to, number one, offer the evidence, then hold the system accountable to action that needs to be taken. For instance, if someone has perpetrated violence following any of the opposition candidates, why don't you offer that evidence and make it public that we have this, the person who perpetrated evidence is ABC. We want you to prosecute these people because there is a constitution which equally we must follow. And then talking about the deputy president, that we had a deputy president who came from the mountain. Rigathi Gachagua, yes, came from the mountain. And where does Professor Kithure Kindiki come from? He comes from the mountain. So if you want to use that reasoning, you must look through and sift it through to see whether that statement will hold for the former and for the current. And I want to ask something. Let me ask a very hard question, which nobody ever asks. Do we have marriages that have broken? People who have gotten married, bound themselves in a covenant, and a marriage broke? If we do, we say yes. Do we have brothers who have failed to agree on some issues? If we do, we say yes. Do we have political allies who have turned into political opponents?
Yeah.
If we do, we say yes. And how must that relationship be managed when a conflict arises? The Constitution stipulates how that relationship must be dealt with. And, for instance, I was the Secretary General of UDA, and I left that space for somebody else. Did I cause so much drama about it? I did not, because that's my style. I believe a public office, if you're given a chance to hold a public office, the same public that entrusted you with the holding of that office, if they choose to entrust another person who still meets the stipulation and the qualifications, the least we can do is to give support to the person who has gotten the tenure to hold that office. Even your desk right now, this is almost like a public office also. If today you are the one who's doing these interviews and then you are told now you're not the news presenter, do you bring this studio down? Of course not. You allow the next person to show their capabilities. And then at the end of the day, I told myself when I was SG, let people now compare my style of leadership with the other style and see where we both rate. And God has given us different abilities to serve different positions. And you don't have to do your news presentation the way Dennis does it. You can still meet the same purpose, but your uniqueness in an individual as a leader, as a presenter, can still be appreciated in spite of them being different from Dennis. So for me, I would ask the candidates in the opposition side, I think they've taken too long to wake up to know the current Deputy President in Republic of Kenya is Professor Kithure Kindiki, and what they should actually concentrate on is packaging themselves so that in 27, if they have alternative leadership, they come in and compete. But we don't have to compete with insults, we don't have to compete with violence, we don't have to compete with hatred and disunity. We must compete in a way that when results are declared, we are able to say, I have fought a good fight, and I will live to fight another day. That is essence of good politics.
Are you essentially saying, and maybe this is to you, Senator Nyutu, Veronica, essentially saying that you should get over it and let's move on?
Well, the world has moved on. The country has moved on. The system has moved on. For me, what I think, even when I see a woman divorced, who still hangs on, 5 years has never healed, or a man divorced, still has 5 years, has never healed, I worry very much. I get very concerned, because if you don't heal, and maybe your partner has already moved on, you're going to have a very difficult time. And recovering to be able to build yourself is going to take you longer if you haven't taken it in emotionally. So the best is, if you find a system has changed or moved on, a CS has changed. For instance, CS Moses Kuria is no longer, former CS Moses Kuria is no longer holding that office, and a few others. What should they do? Should they sit and lament, or should they be able to package themselves to offer the leadership where they can offer that leadership? My proposition is, as an individual, it is important for us to know we prepare ourselves for transition all the time, especially when you hold a public office. Don't hold it as though that's your seat. And that's how people get to fight and do. Because if Senator Nyutu holds the position of senator in Murang'a, but thinks there is no other Kenyan who can hold that position, or even a member of parliament, or even myself, I'm nominated today. Do I have to be nominated in 2027? Maybe yes, maybe not. And if I'm not nominated, should I now add insults at the party because they don't give me a chance? That would be abusing the responsibility I was initially given. So for me, my cry and my plea, especially because of the vulnerable community in Kenya, in public office, let's serve with humility. Let's not just dump. In an opposition, if you think government is doing something wrong, why aren't you showing a better example? On issues of healthcare, the government has taken care. We have a SHA project right now, a SHA program right now. We have the education, the funding model that has been given. There are things that have been straightened out in the funding model. Does SHA work? Yes, it does. And anybody who tries to cheat a Kenyan, that SHA does not work, does not actually care about the person they are cheating. Because I have so many people, including people I have assisted to get SHA, who have been assisted to pay a substantial part of the bill using SHA. Is it a concern that somebody in Mombasa died in hospital because of equipment? I would tell you, Dennis, is a big concern. One of the biggest concern I have, even of Murang'a County, I have said many times, and let me be hard again on this, we do not want to see hospitals being painted white and blue without equipment inside and without doctors. And that is why counties must take up that challenge, because they have an equipment leasing program with the national government. They must be able to put measures in place that definitely takes care of basic health care, primary health care, and secondary health care. And there is a lot of support. If we can ease off the noise, there is a lot of work happening in the background. But the noise is too loud because people are more concentrated on 2027. Let me tell you something. The leadership that God chooses in 2027, they will have the responsibility from 2027. But between now and 2027, the senator for Murang'a elected is Nyutu. The nominated senator for Murang'a, also given a chance through a special election, is Veronica Maina. Those facts are not changing. The best we can do is support the leadership that is in place, help them deliver. For instance,
and possibly also, when things are not going as they should, call out the same leadership on some of those things.
It's okay to call out.
Is that
I think it's okay when we use
I'm sorry,
issue-based.
Senator. Is that something that is required or necessary? If you see that something is not going right, there's a responsibility also that's on shoulders to say, okay, here we are off the mark. Can we fix it? It's not just support, but it's that when something is going wrong, that it should be called out and asked for, to put it back on the right track.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I am a firm believer that you may be in this studio and the way you are doing it, you could even be thinking you're doing the best. Then you discover somebody has even a slightly better idea. There should always be room in a leader to hear the view of a person who's even dissenting based on issues, not based on insults, not based on unnecessary fights. Because you can come and basically tell me if the color of this tabletop was green, it would do better for the cameras. Of course you can listen. So for me, I see style of leadership that serves the people is a style of leadership that takes the views, even a contrary view that does not agree with the position you take. And with my training as a lawyer, we do quite accommodate dissenting views, even when it is not pleasant.
Yeah, Senator Nyutu, the opposition where you belong has been accused of, is actually seen as an ex-girlfriend who's refused to move on. That you'd sit at the corner and blame the government, not offer any alternative. So what would be the alternative to the kind of political leadership that you have in the country in order to push the country forward? And what is how is the opposition as well positioning itself to be that alternative voice that Kenyans are yearning for?
Thank you, Dennis. That is a very good question. But I want to dispel this notion that the opposition is, behaving like a jilted lover. I mean, sometimes.
I hope that's not in dispute.
And I'm a very keen listener. And one thing I'll never do, and I can assure you, is interrupt anybody when they are making their submissions, because I believe that I also get my time at the end of it all. I mean, the issue, and I've heard Senator Veronica use the same example. The issue of Rigathi Gachagua came, for me, depending on the context. And you must not lose the context. Because I was responding to the issue of Mount Kenya leaders saying that they will not allow anybody else to take the deputy president's position in 2027. So I was just responding to an issue that was raised. I did not bring Rigathi Gachagua's issue out of nowhere. It was in context that, they are saying, and I think it's you that brought it, that, it has to be the Deputy President Kindiki or nothing. And the question was, where do 190 come in? That was the question I was responding to. And I said that, although Dennis said that you have not talked about healthcare, education, but I had talked about, heavy taxation. I had talked about violation of human rights, because, of course, I had not been asked to enlist all the challenges that are there. So the jilted lover issue is neither here nor there. And today, as we are talking here, the opposition is not Rigathi Gachagua. We have so many others that were not removed from their positions. So it's not about Rigathi Gachagua here. We have Kalonzo Musyoka. We have Fred Matiang'i. We have Eugene Wamalwa. We have George Natembeya, who is actually still governor of Trans Nzoia. I mean, then we have, Edwin Sifuna now. We have Babu Owino. We have James Orengo, who are in position. So where does the issue of, jilted lovers come in here? We are talking about people who are very well, organized, and they are coming up against, mismanagement of the country, against violation of human rights. I mean, they are talking about Kenyans. So when my colleague says that in my response I was I also insulted somebody, I think can be further from the truth. I just said, who doesn't know that President Ruto every day is saying that the opposition has no brains? Is that something that he does he not say it every day when he's doing Nyota or whatever he's doing? And then I was just responding to that if you say others have no brains, simply then you are saying that the only brains that were there were given to you. That's why others do not have brains. I was just responding to that. How does that become an insult unless somebody wants to be paranoid? How? I was just responding to an issue that he says every day. Hawana agenda, hawana mpango, hawana akili. So if everybody else does not have brains, then I'm just saying that in the brain or in the mind of this particular person, he believes that God is limited, and so the only brains that remained were given to him. That's why others do not have brains.
I hear you on that,
How
Senator.
does that become an insult? I'm just responding because I'm
Sure.
told that I responded to that by insulting somebody. Now, when we are told here by Senator Veronica that why don't we produce evidence of violence, perpetrated against leaders of the opposition? What more evidence needs to be there? Look at Witima Church, for example, which was widely, reported. There was a police vehicle there. There were armed officers. The officers known, whose names were mentioned. They have not even been called to record a statement. What other kind of evidence is needed? When we were attacked in Murang'a, again in a place called Gonda in Kigumo constituency, we were reported to IPOA. Vehicles that had bullet holes were taken to IPOA. What other evidence is required on this? And so I think let us be, truthful also. And let us not be, emotional sometimes. We should approach these things in the right way. But as for moving on, because that is another thing that has really featured here. As for moving on, who is supposed to move on? Nobody's, has a challenge of moving on. Moving on from what? We have no issue with moving on. But that's coming to your question, Dennis.
But, moving on from the fact that, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is no longer there, can we go, I think this is what Senator Veronica was saying, that, it seemed to be harping on that for the last 1 year. He was, removed from office. I guess moving on from that point to say, what's the next thing? Because Deputy President Kithure Kindiki is the Deputy President at the moment. In foreseeable circumstances, he will remain the Deputy President. And I guess that's the point from where you're saying, okay, can we now move on to discuss other things or to engage in other things? But from what you're saying is that the moving on has already occurred.
Yes, I don't think I don't remember the last time I talked about the Deputy President having been removed.
Okay.
I don't remember him in the recent months talking about his having been removed from office. So, but now coming to the issues, what is the alternative? That is a question that you had asked, Dennis. First of all, I've listened to President Ruto say that we should compare notes at the elections. Then he will come and say the roads that he has built. He will come and bring the markets that he has built, and then we will compare. That's laughable. How do you compare a president who is managing, national resources to people in the opposition who are not managing anything? I think for us, we can only say what we will do once we get to office. Otherwise, President Ruto will not be allowed to mislead people that he will come and say, I have constructed this road. What has the opposition constructed? The opposition cannot construct any roads because we are not the ones managing national resources. What we can say is what we can do better if we were to get a position. And we are saying that we want to bring back the dignity of the payslip. That is something very important that we are saying. We are saying, although people are saying that healthcare is working, SHA is working, I think I would want to challenge my colleague because it has been reported again, especially in Murang'a, the president, sending people to go and offset bills, hospital bills. I mean, it's true that SHA sometimes, comes in for just a portion of the bill. But still, huge bills, are left unpaid. And the president himself has sent money to offset these bills. So
I think he went as far as saying, if you go to a hospital and you're required to pay some money, give me a call. Yeah. I think that was...
yes, exactly.
That was actually
he has said that. Yeah. In fact, he said that somebody should be... such a hospital should be reported and action will be taken against them, which is not what is happening. It is true, SHA is meeting part of the bill, but not the full bill. Contrary to what the president, as you have observed, said, that you're supposed to get into a hospital, be treated, and walk out, because SHA will cover everything. It's not covering everything, and that's a fact.
That's for primary health care.
Oh, I waited for her so many minutes, so I think when it is my time, it's important that she holds her horses.
Clarifying.
Yeah. You'll get your time to clarify.
Okay, carry, please.
You even said that I issue statements to attract media, and I did not interrupt you when you got personal. So just be patient. So with education, what is reported, what is there on paper is not what we get on the ground. And yes, Dennis, you have said, so many parents are saying they do not know what they are going to do. First of all, schools are not charging according to the guidelines given by the ministry. They have introduced some of the charges, and parents are supposed to meet these. When you tell a student, for example, to go to school, to grade 10, with or without uniform, what are you telling that particular student? Where do you put the emotional being, the psychological being of the student, going to school without uniform and being, there are so many problems that we have with education, with health, which we may not be able to talk about in full. But allow me to say that we want to bring back the dignity of the payslip. We want to bring complete free education in primary and secondary school. Where parents are not supposed to, will not pay anything because government can or will provide for that, and that will be achieved by making sure that monies that are meant for schools are disbursed in time and as per the schedule that has been laid. 50% in first term, 30% in second term, 20% in third term. We will generate more energy, of course, to be able to attract, to boost production and to make cost of production cheaper so that we can attract even more local and foreign investors. We will see to it that human rights are respected, that no one will ever, violate human rights, and we are going to make the police a service, not a force. And there are many other things that, if given an opportunity, we can do, and we can be able to explain here and how we are going to do them. But basically, healthcare, education, dignity of the payslip, food security, and not just, synthetic food security where you say you're giving cheap fertilizer, subsidized fertilizer. We would want to see, a permanent solution towards food security. Like, for example, construction of dams in the northeastern region in Ukambani, so that we do not continue relying on rain-fed agriculture. We have the plan, but we do not have the mandate of Kenyans, which is what we are seeking.
Senator Maina. A lot has been said, but one then asks the question, as a leader who's already in Senate, both of you, one would talk about your position today in terms of ensuring that everything we're talking about is working today.
Yes.
Because you're there to oversight, to represent, and legislate, right?
Yeah, and legislate.
And as leaders in the assembly today, what are we doing to ensure that all these things you're talking about are working today? You're talking about the future. Senator, we want to talk about today, because if healthcare is not working today, Kenyans want it to work today. If it's about education, it should work today. If it's about political intolerance, it should not be there today.
Let me first respond to the issues that he has raised about Wetima Church and Gonda in Kegumo constituency. Yes, we saw the videos, and there is active investigation into those two matters. On the Wetima Church, especially, I have even made my views known. Nobody, not a police officer, not even an opposition candidate or the goons around anybody, are allowed to throw a tear gas into a church. That we are very clear about. And let's get it clear, because the problem we have is that we mix issues so much with politics that even an important, serious issue is canvassed by politics. And sometimes we are getting into very, very, what I would call very cheap politics. Those are very, very weighty issues. We cannot have tear gas thrown into a church. And that is why I personally asked the IG, and even the president has spoken on the matter last Sunday, about bringing those dissensions and disaffections within a church and worship places. That one, there is no leader. I don't think there is any leader who accepts that this should happen. In fact, many leaders spoke on it. C.S. Mulcomen spoke about it. And many, many leaders gave a comment on this issue. We do not agree. And this government does not agree to is not fighting the church. So to even insinuate that the government would throw... Why do you think the government would want to throw a tear gas into the church? To achieve what? To achieve popularity?
It's a good question.
That is very cheap politics.
But if I make a connected question to that, Senator, is that we know also that this is ammunition. Tear gas canister is ammunition. The folks who have access to and give the order for ammunition to be released from the armory is the police. The police who sit directly under the CS for internal.
That's the ideal.
The question is, if it were to be released, whether it's in a church in Wetima or if it is in a valley in another part of the country, the point is that it is released from the police. If somebody steals it from the armory, still the police have a question to answer. And if it is a police officer, somebody... So the point of order is that because they work in a system of discipline and order, who gave the okay for it to leave?
Let me respond. And you'll be surprised that I agree with you, and that's what I said. Because the tear gas is controlled by the police. If even a civilian gets access to that tear gas, we then need an explanation as to why the civilian got access to the tear gas. That I agree with you. But I want to ask you a question, a very honest question. Do we have gangsters today in Kenya who even own a gun?
Yes.
Exactly. Are they supposed to own them when they are not licensed?
No.
They are not.
But where do they get them from?
I can't know. I don't work in the gangster land. I'm not the best placed person to answer that.
So perhaps
question.
It's not the best example.
The point
then.
is this. I'm just saying that because that's the reality. It's called a reality check. Did they start owning the guns with this current government? No. Once again, that's a no. Because even before the previous regimes, we've had a challenge with the criminal elements within our society, and that's why you even saw the cooperation agreement that was signed to collaborate between Nairobi County and the national government. There was an aspect of security and putting up a special service that you serve Nairobi to ease off, to make sure we tame crime within the city. Why am I using that example? Just listen to me first. You hear my full explanation. Because if you have a challenge somewhere, instead of hiding your head under, like the ostrich, putting the head under, thinking the body is not being seen, better own up and try to mitigate or intervene in the challenges that we are having. That's why we asked the IG to do the investigation and give us the position on who threw that tear gas canisters. Is it the use of the goons or is it the police officers? Once that active investigation is concluded, they'll give an explanation to Kenyans how that tear gas landed in church. But the point is this, and this is a point for me I would want all to hear. Both those who are holding goons, even politicians who are harboring goons, it's a bad culture. Let's reject it, because even the goons who are being used, these are young people actually named as goons. Why are they being named as goons? Why are they being used to militarize politics? Politics must not be militarized.
I hazard a
And
guess. I'm sorry, Senator, but the police that work in Kenya are not dimwits. They're very intelligent people.
Yes.
Very intelligent, and have been renowned the world over. I hazard a guess that today, they know very well what has happened. Police have told us on very many occasions.
Unless you have information, I don't have
just
that.
Allow me to answer this, to ask this question, because if we are saying that you have a police service who is unaware of the happenings in society, then I think that's a very worrisome place to come from. That if a question has been asked of the police, how long was the Watima issue? Are we talking about a month now? How long ago was that, Senator?
Over a month ago.
Over a month ago. To please investigate into this matter, we've not heard a peep out of it. And so this asks the broader question, that if somebody can be forced to answer a question that ordinarily should be very quick to get we've seen queries over here. Within 48 hours, a man was found in his house with I don't know how many SIM cards, and they were able to trace him back to where he used the washroom 24 hours ago. So the question is there appetite to sort out some of these issues when it is not necessarily in interest? Because we've seen the police move much faster on other issues. Why would something like this take so long? I'm sure you know exactly what I'm asking, Senator. Why would it take so long?
I hope you're asking me that question without a bias. Because
no, I'm very clear with my question. Why would it take so long on something like this?
For me, let me tell you what I would prefer, both as a practitioner, a legal practitioner, and as a citizen of Kenya. I would prefer that investigations are completed within 24 hours. Let me even tell you, because even when an accused person has to be taken to court, they ideally have to be taken to court very speedily so that we can at least get, we can get answers to some of the issues and discourage criminality. There is no day you will find me supporting criminality in any of its form. So for me, I would even use this opportunity to say, let the IG speed up that investigation and give an answer to Kenyans. I don't work for the police force, police service. So I may not be able to control the timing of how that investigation is done, or how much effort they need, or whatever it is that they are testing. But whatever it is that is being done, I would also urge the IG to ensure that speedy conclusion of this matter is done, so Kenyans can have an answer to that. Beyond that, I can't tell. But because if I speak like a politician on the side of government, I will actually use the version that has been explained by our side to say this was lobbed by goons that came in with the opposition. But I know better than that, Ndu. I know better than that. That's why I can't give that as an answer. I want an answer that is based on facts, an answer that is based on the images that came from that scene, an answer that is based on checking where that tear gas could have come. Is it a tear gas that is within the police service? Is it a tear gas that somebody has gained illegally or brought in illegally? That's why I would not answer to that question until I have the full answers. And the best person, by the way, even yourselves, take a moment to call in like the IG and ask questions about the Watima. They will send you somebody, and they have a spokesperson.
Of law, Senator,
the police also have a spokesperson.
A high court judge demanded that the IG come and give answers to the disappearance of a man who had been taken by people who were identified as police. The IG till today is yet to present himself in court.
To be fair,
it's true.
If
it's
you have
the
the man, you would have to serve the full details of the man. You give me the full details of the case. I take them to the IG. I ask an explanation. Then I give you a good answer.
Senator, I think you're being a little bit disingenuous, because it was very clear, and it was in the public. Excuse me. I'm sorry. It was in the public eye that the court of law.
Which one is that? What was the name of that man?
The court asked.
You've asked me about a man. Be fair.
Just hang on.
Be fair.
His name is Mwenda Mbijire. The court asked very clearly that the IG come in addition to the DCI to appear in court and to either present the man dead or alive. My point is that a court order was not adhered to. This is coming from your suggestion that we bring the IG here to explain to us why a court case, why an investigation is taking so long. If an arm of government asked a man to come and give an explanation, do you imagine that he would come and explain to us why it's taking so long for them to investigate Witima?
Why would he not come?
Because he
I've
didn't go
seen
to
them,
the people who've demanded him in
because
court.
I've seen them come to the media houses. But let me ask you a question. Do you honestly want me to believe that best journalism will be in giving me a name on the studio without notice and asking me to respond to the facts of that case?
I didn't ask you to respond to no, please. I think
seeking
I'm sorry,
facts
Senator.
about the case.
No, Senator, I think we need to be clear, because I understand that you would use some, I understand, but I was very clear. And I said, using an example, if a court order was given and the IG did not come, would I then, as a journalist, be able to summon the same person to come and give me details about an investigation?
Did you know?
I didn't ask you to tell me about the details of that case. Let's put that to bed, because I didn't do that. I was clear. And I said, if we are looking at somebody who's behaved this way, based on your suggestion that we should bring him here, can we expect that he would come here to explain about Wetima when there are people who've been asking
I would expect him to explain, and I'll tell you why.
But now we're telling you that the
Because
reality of the situation is that he does
he's not above the Constitution.
Okay.
He's not above the Constitution. I would explain to you why he's bound to explain. He's bound to bring out the investigation, because it is in that same constitution that calls for that accountability. So my legitimate expectation of the IG's office is that if he's required by court to do a certain action, he does it. If he doesn't do it, the court knows what to do. Did you know that, Ndu?
Okay.
Have you not seen summons being issued or warrants of arrest being issued from court?
And what happens thereafter?
The court knows what to do. But I cannot answer for judiciary. I answer for the IG. But I do know there is a bind under the Constitution through which everybody is supposed to behave. Whether you're a public officer, a state officer, an ordinary resident in Kenya, a citizen, everybody has their own obligations under the Constitution. Because what is the alternative that you're thinking is being offered outside the framework of the Constitution?
Maybe Senator Nyutu can ask that question, as we have 2 minutes to go. What is the expectation if the next thing to be done? Because this all points to leadership. That when we're saying that there's certain people in positions who really can't get an answer that they're looking for. And we started this conversation with the people being as the larger percentage of those who expect a certain thing from leadership. What would be the next expectation?
One thing that is very clear, even from the submissions that my sister and friend is making here, is that some of the things that this government has done are indefensible. You just can't defend this. Especially this tired argument of investigations are happening. I mean, you have seen people, committing a crime and they are arrested, then investigations happen later. We are talking about Witima Church, and I had said it. Police officers' names that were involved there, their names were given and they are known. They are people we know. There was a police vehicle there. What do you need to investigate? Why do we arrest, for example, when we have protests? Why do we arrest, some young men and take them to the police cell before investigations have happened? It is just, some kind of an excuse, because this violence is perpetrated by the police, knowing very well that they have support of government. And when I heard Senator Veronica say that even President Ruto has condemned has talked about these church attacks, and his interior minister Murkomen has also talked about it. Come on, we do not want the president to talk about it. We do not want Murkomen to talk about it. We want the president to order that action is taken against perpetrators. It is not enough for the president to lament together with the rest of us. The president has the machinery, the government machinery. Action should be taken. We do not want them to talk about it. When I listened to the example by my friend saying that gangsters have always, held illegal guns. You cannot compare that to somebody who lobs a tear gas canister in a church where Rigathi Gachagua is attending. Because definitely, you would expect that because these things have been happening, you would expect that they would happen. You may not know, you may not expect a particular gun holder, illegal gun holder, to be somewhere. So that is different. But you can expect that somebody will lobby a tear gas canister in a gathering. So that now, then you have security around that place and people collect intelligence about that particular place. I met the one officer from IPOA the other day in another media station. And he said that the police in Nyeri, in Odhaya, did not have intelligence that Rigathi Gachagua was going to attend Witima Church. And these are jokes. Border riders in Odhaya town knew even a day before that Rigathi Gachagua was to visit. But the police did not know, according to IPOA. So what we are saying is that these things is just, a lame excuse. Is just an excuse to cover the fact that they have been instructed not to act. You talked about Witima happened about 1 month ago. Gonda, the one I talked about in the Kigoma constituency in Murang'a County, happened in July, 7 months ago. Nothing, even a progress report has been made. So what we should say and say it very categorically is that we do not want government to continue hiding behind the issue, the third argument that investigations are happening. We need, and what citizens expect to see, do, because you have asked what next, is to see a government that is responding with speed to any crime committed against Kenyans, be they leaders or ordinary citizens, because that's why we have a government. That is why people pay taxes, so that government can finance and all its arms, investigators, the police service and everything. So government cannot, in my view, like I had said, it cannot lament together with the rest of us. Government should take action. Government should not investigate to eternity. Government should take action and take it promptly, not wait and for months to pass and nothing is done in the final end. So let's see more action being taken against perpetrators. Of the law. Lawbreakers and anybody who does anything that is not allowed by the Constitution of Kenya.
Well, obviously, from a lot of these conversations, there's still a long way to go. There's still a lot that has to be weeded through. We want to thank both of you senators for joining us in the room this morning. Senator Veronica Maina and Senator from Murang'a County, Joe Nyutu. Thank you so much for being here this morning in the Situation Room. And we continue these conversations when the opportunity grants itself. Asante Sana for being here at 9:04. Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.